Welcome, we're glad you're here, and it's going to be fun to celebrate another veteran. Gary's sat through quite a few of these, so it's your turn.
Okay, so we've been asked a lot of how did this start with the quilts for our veterans at Cornerstone. And basically, last year at the Veterans Breakfast, we had Pam Hunt was the featured veteran, and she was in the Air National Guard. She had a Quilt of Valor that she had there, and Barry asked if other veterans had quilts, and very few of the veterans there had any kind of quilt. And so sometime after that, I was talking to Kathy and about maybe, we had talked about doing quilts for our two Garys, Vietnam veterans, and we never quite got around to it. But it broke my heart that there were so many veterans just at Cornerstone alone who had never been publicly thanked. So that kind of started churning this whole idea in my heart and my head. And since Kathy and I are pretty good about getting into trouble, we're not in trouble, doing things together. I mentioned it to her and asked if she was up for another adventure.
So we decided to fly it past Barry and see what he thought, and he said, go for it. So now the question started. Where do we get the money?
How do we begin? Oh no, what
have we get ourselves into?
What have we done now?
We didn't know for sure even how many veterans Cornerstone had, so they had a rough list, and we ended up with 27, and 23 do not have quilts. So Janice said, what do you think? Let's do this in a year. And I said, how about 2 years? Seemed like quite a lot. So
Quilts of Valor is maybe something you've heard of. Quilts of Valor is a foundation, national foundation, but they are more specific to combat veterans. They have specific criteria, and you just go on a waiting list, and when a quilt comes available, then you are presented with a quilt. And we just did not really want to narrow it to just combat veterans. We thought that veterans who were in reserves, active, whatever their role, wartime, peacetime, that we wanted to honor them. And so our quilts are actually Cornerstone honor quilts, and they are very specific to Cornerstone veterans.
So we put in a grant request to our local outreach and to get things started, and then we got 2 outside small grants. And then we were like, okay, what about quilters? Well, we knew we had a lot of talented ones. We kind of put some emails out, and they came, and they came.
Yeah. So our Cornerstone quilters that helped with the quilts that we've done are Bonnie Heastan, Liz Prom, Linda Hill, Pam Hunt, Tricia Crockett, and then we also had friends who heard what we were doing from other churches and said, what can we do to help? And so we had women from Good Shepherd, from Christ the Vine Lutheran Church, from Pleasant Home Church, Manna House, and Harvest Church come alongside and help us finish up what we've done.
So our original plan was to have our veterans breakfast and give all the quilts. But then COVID-19 happened, so God apparently has a better plan, which we've been able to do it individually, and Barry's doing a video which will be shown Sunday before Veterans Day at church, and it's kind of a composite of all of them. So we did not get 23 quilts done this year. I thought, well, we should be able to get 6. We didn't start till June or July, and we actually have 15 done, so the rest of them will be awarded next year.
And truly, we could not have accomplished this on our own without the grants from local outreach, without the quilters and people coming alongside. God has just taken this little idea and has done amazingly more than we could have ever thought.
Above and beyond.
And just way out of what we could have ever done on our own, so.
Thanks to Barry, we can do this production, and everybody at church can see how much fun we had. So, Garey, would you like to come up? I have something I'd like to read you. We'd like to take this opportunity to publicly thank you for serving our country. Whether you served on active duty or reserve, whether you served on the battlefield or in one of the many support roles, you are part of an elite group of Americans. You answered your country's call to serve. You swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. You signed a blank check to Uncle Sam for the term of your enlistment, giving up some of your freedom to serve. Those of us who have not served will never fully understand the sacrifices you've made, both in time of peace and of war. We will never fully understand what you were required to do or how you were able to do it. So with great respect and gratitude, on behalf of Cornerstone Church, we have a quote we would like to present to you. Thank you.
But before we do that, we've asked each one of our veterans for a little bit of a bio on their service. And you know, since most of us are family here, you've heard him. He's had a lot of things that he has shared about his service, but there are some things that you may not know. So, did you know that he wanted to become a Marine when he was 5 years old? Tucker's age. The reason that he ended up going in a 2-year enlistment was because of advice from a neighbor and a Marine veteran who said, always sign up for the least amount you can, because if you sign up for more than that and you don't like it, you're stuck. But if you sign up for less and you want to stay in, you get more money. So there was a method to his madness on going to the two-year enlistment. After high school, he was actually registered to go to school at LA Trade Tech to become a draftsman, but he wasn't able to get a job because in those days there was the draft, and they weren't going to hire anyone that was subject to draft. And his family, there was no way that his family would ever have money that he could have gone to school without that. And so he went to a recruiter and wanted to sign up and go into the Marines, but he was only 17, and they told him he needed his parents to sign for him. And he said, that's not going to happen. I want to sign for myself. So it was not too much longer until his 18th birthday, but in the meantime, we were in Southern California, and he had the beaches to go play and have a lazy senior year summer. And so he hung around until he turned 18, and as soon as he turned 18, he went down to the recruiter, enlisted, and on September 2nd, he was headed to boot camp. Ironically, while he was in boot camp, he got his draft notice. So he would have been going anyway, but he was in where he wanted to be, which was the Marine Corps. Following boot camp, he went to 4 weeks of infantry training, and then he had a 30-day leave, which was wonderful because I hadn't seen him for a while. So it was really nice to have him home over Christmas. But after his leave, right after the first of the year, he started radio school at Camp Pendleton. You may have heard the saying, the Marine saying, that if the Marines wanted you to have a wife, they would have issued you one. Well, we weren't married yet. We wanted to get married, so he had to go get permission from his commanding officer to get a Marine-issued wife. me. We were married, he finished his schooling, and he left for Camp Lejeune, North Carolina on February 12th, 2 weekends after we got married. He was assigned to the 10th Marines, 2nd Marine Division. And he was there until he got his orders for Vietnam. We moved back to California, where he went through jungle training and escape and evasion. And he was on a medical hold because I was having complications with pregnancy with Carrie, and so they agreed to hold him until she was born. So when she was born, he got his flight date like immediately. And he left for Vietnam on September 18th. Carrie was a week old. And he served with the 3rd Marine Regiment headquarters, 3rd Marine Division in Vietnam. And he came home right before his 20th birthday in August of 1968 and was discharged. That's the pre-story. So we've also asked the veterans if there's anything they want to add. So.
No, the only thing I can say is that some of you may not know that when the Vietnam veterans came home, we weren't welcomed. A lot of unspeakable attention was given to us. We were accused of being baby killers. And I can tell you now, almost everybody that served in Vietnam, you'll see a picture of them with the little kids. I got one of me after we searched the village, 2 little boys. I had my picture taken with them. I think Gary's had pictures taken with them. There were some bad apples in a group, as there's bad in any group. But the part that really saved me, I guess if you want to call it that, is my whole family has a history of veterans, Navy, Army, Marines, a lot of Marines. But it was the family that I came back to with Janice that veterans were accepted. And I almost instantly got a job with Pacific Telephone and Telegraph, downtown Civic Center, Los Angeles. And since you're in the middle of a city, you don't get to drive a van, you walked everywhere. So I got a little place you're generally assigned a building. But in the what we call the doghouse, there was 3 installation crews and 2 repair crews, and a lot of veterans. There was about probably 4 or 5 World War II veterans, whole handful of Korean War veterans, and I was either the 1st or 2nd Vietnam veterans. So it was easy to come home when you had family support and you had support at work. However, on one occasion, I did have a person that I considered a friend ask me if I wanted to go to a rally during lunch one day. And I said, well, what's the rally? And they said, well, it's a Vietnam protest. I said, well, you're aware I served in Vietnam. Oh, yeah, but they made you go. They drafted you. I said, no, I'm an enlistee, and I volunteered. Turned their back on me and never spoke to me again. I know some of the Army guys that I've met coming home. If you flew military standby, you had to wear your uniforms to get home after coming home from Vietnam when you were let out. And a number of them would go into the restrooms and take off their uniforms and throw them in the trash and pick up their civilian clothes and pay their full fare to fly home, because it was just too disgusting to have people calling you names and everything. So back to my original statement, the being accepted was really what kind of saved me, family. And just a little side note to go on, we used to at Thanksgiving dinner always write 3 things, or write what your 3 top priorities are. And I would always write God, family, and country. And my girls at one time asked me, said, you always say the same thing every year, Dad. And I said, yeah, because that's what it is to me. God, family, and country is the order of my priorities. My bride here has been with me over 53 years. We've known each other. Coming November 20th, we will be on our 55th year since our first date. So we've been together through a lot, and the support really has meant a lot. And then when they started doing this, I thought that would be great, you know, the honors quilt for everybody. And I've seen both of these ladies put in just hundreds of hours, literally, and just the people coming and going and picking up quilts to help out. It's just been amazing, the support. And it does feel good to get the welcome and a thank you. So.
And with that, he has not seen his quilt yet, and I will also say there is not one quilt that is identical to any of the others. Each is its own pattern. So, the label on his quilt says, Cornerstone Honor Quilt, presented to Garey Wood in recognition of your service in the United States Marines, Vietnam veteran, 1966-1968, made with pride and love by his wife Janice Wood, August 1st, 2020. Would you like to come around and see it?
Yes.
Thank you. It's beautiful.
So, if you would step back around.
Okay.
There you go.
Wrapped in love, and welcome home.
Thank you. And I thank all of you for being here also. And just, I'd like to personally thank every one of the ladies that worked on it, but I don't know if I could even name all of them. So, it's an honor. It really is. And it was an honor to serve. And like a lot of them have said, if I had to do it all over again, I would. So, thank you.